Hello everyone, Manithral here, and welcome back to the weekly OSRS update video. Now, yesterday's update, it was postponed until today. They did have something that got published a couple days ago that did say that there was going to be 1 day delay. That's all it really was. But this week we have Darkmeyer improvements. So the change list, the tier 3 projectiles having the same hitbox as Tier 1 and 2 have been reverted due to a bug where players could run through them without taking damage. The statue animations being in sync for fire traps has been reverted to how they were pre-launch, as there was an issue with the fire sometimes not animating at all. Lord Lorniel Draken has seen a sudden influx of guests since Darkmeyer's release, and so we've been compelled to tidy up the place. In addition to day one changes, the following improvements have been made with this week's update. So for Darkmeyer, we have the Severed Leg is now classed as a fun weapon so as not to compete with Ham Joint or the Swift Blades. The Sins of the Father quest guide is now more specific when it comes to entering the manor during the Damien section. Fix some graphical glitches with Vire Noble clothing. The Vire Noble outfit can be stored in a player-owned house. The mining XP from the day out mine has been increased, and the time before the deposit moves has been made more consistent. Vire Watch have been added to the Slayer log. The shortcut between Burrows and Berde Rot is now working. The boat between Hollows and Moritan is now working again. The hollowed symbol now works like a holy symbol when using the prayer book from the Great Brain Robbery. The Meyerditch Laboratories have been added to Konar's list of areas. The various Blisterwood logs have been reduced. The value of Vire Noble clothing has been reduced to make it a lower priority for keeping on death. The Blisterwood tree now gives 52 XP per log rather than 76 XP. Some grammar has been corrected in the Sins of the Father. And then there's more changes to actually follow up. We also have the Hollow Sepulchre. Sepulchre is what I want to call it. So the bolt projectile that Hollow Sepulchre is now larger and glows, which should make it easier to spot. The glow on the ground cast by the bolt is no longer bolt shaped, so to avoid confusion. Since all loot from the coffins is removed after the timer runs out in the hollowed, Vampire Dust Sacrifices, Bridge Building, and Portal Conjuring will also be disabled after this point. The timer will now disappear when your timer runs out to avoid confusion. Ghosts of the Hollowed will now spawn after the loot is collected so as not to interrupt the action. Sword traps will stop appearing where they shouldn't be. You can now enter the Holy Barrier on floor 5 while stood on either side of it. The tier 3 bolt projectiles have the same hitbox as tier 1 and 2. All bolt traps are now more forgiving when trying to move 2 tiles perpendicular to them. You will now receive slightly more hollowed marks on floors 1, 2, and 3, but slightly fewer on 4 and 5, and from the Grand Coffin. The statue animations for the fire traps should now be in sync. If you have time remaining, you can now use it to loot multiple coffins on floors 3 and 4. Instances where players would be stuck when descending to a new floor have been resolved. Because of the global best time for floor 5 has been reset. The rarity of Strange Old Lockpick has been adjusted to account for multiple chests available on each floor. Hollow tokens will now cost 10 marks instead of 15. The all hollowed items can no longer be alchemized. Floor changes. The XP drop from each floor has been rebalanced. Floor number 2, current XP is 900 and new XP is 850. Floor number 3, 1600, now 1500. Floor 4 was 3,000, now 2,700. And floor 5 was 6,500, it is now 6,000. So not too much of a change. It's still pretty dang good if you ask me. Fire traps on this floor will now turn on and off at the same rate as fire traps on floors 3 and 4. Fire traps, oh, this is for floor 2. That was floor 1. Floor 2, fire traps on this floor will turn on and off at the same rate as fire traps on 3 and 4. Some blue teleport pads have been added to the north, east, and west paths so that there is no 3x3 yellow teleport pads. The last fire trap on the east path now has more reasonable respawn coordinate if you fail at the end. Floor 3, the first sword trap on the west and east paths wait 5 cycles between catching and throwing the sword, so that they are slightly more forgiving. The firing rate of bolts on the final trap has been resolved to slow down by 1 cycle. Floor 4, a missing pad has been added to the sword trap at the end of the north path to indicate where the sword stops. The sword and fire trap combination on the south path now have 2 possible solutions to reduce the amount of wait time. The last 2 flames of the fire trap on the northern path are now active on every rotation. The final bolt on the teleport pad combination on the south pad now has a blue teleport pad to avoid having a 3x3 yellow teleport tabs. Floor 5, the bolt statues for the final trap have been moved forward slightly so their animations can be seen more easily. The first bolt in the teleport pad combination trap now has a few more blue teleport tiles. In other news, the PvP World Rota is switching to Period B on the East Atlantic, host of the standard PvP World 25 UK and the free-to-play World 71 UK. On the west of the Atlantic, host the Bounty Hunter World 19 USA and the High Risk World 37 USA. The Slayer partner system has been closed indefinitely following several incidences where the system features were manipulated in ways that are unintended for its purpose. As of today's update, you will be unable to send Slayer invites to other players. The messaging on relevant Slayer items has been altered to reflect this change. The ancestral robes, as well as the Dark and Light Infinity robe kits, can now be stored in the player-owned house wardrobe. Fixed an issue where the Forsaken Tower and Servants of Strife weren't playing loudly enough. Lord Ironworth's crystal pendant is now the same color as male-female characters. Players can no longer walk into the wall near a gate under a slip. Some grammar has been corrected in X marks the spot. Some grammar has been corrected in dialogue with a character on slip. The 6 Pyramid Plunder Room has been restored to the Thieving Skill Guide, having been accidentally overwritten by the Hollowed Sepulchre. Bounty Hunter Emblem upgrades are now capped at 10 per day to limit farming. The Bounty Hunter Reward Shop on the Permanent Dead Man world now includes the potions it had in the recent tournament. So there's also been some Darkmeyer Day 1 feedback changes. So this is actually a continuation of somewhat of the stuff I said. But this is hot fixes, so if you don't want to watch that, that's perfectly fine. The following changes were hot fixes yesterday. Virawatch Sentinels are no longer cannonable. Players can no longer alchemize Blisterwood weapons. The Crystal Saw can now be used to build the bridge in the Hollowed Sepulchre. Fixed a bug where players could not properly enter the Hollowed instances. Fixed a bug that caused players to teleport to the entrance on completing floors in the Hollowed. Personal best times have been reset due to this fix. A couple of typos in the Sins of the Father quest have been fixed. In the Temple Trexen section of the quest, Ivan would take a full sack of food if offered. They've had a word with him about sharing, and from now on he will only take 1 stack. Some blocking that was accidentally added to the swamps near Darkmeyer have been replaced with traversable scenery. The Darkmeyer bankers now stop players from banking there without a disguise, even when they are interacted with from a distance. Fix an issue where a clue scroll in the vicinity of Castle Drakon was incomplete. The Ring of Endurance can now be traded on the Grand Exchange. The following hotfixes were fixed today. Now this is all from June 5th. So this was a while ago that this stuff got fixed, but it was in today's post. XP for completing a floor in the Hollowed is no longer scaled down depending on the time remaining. This will moderately increase overall XP per hour. All treasure encounters in the Hollowed are now enabled, though you could still only pick one to loot. Leaving the Hollowed using an obelisk will now restore run energy if you are wearing Ceradomin items. The immunity period following the activation of Teleport Trap has been increased to 2 cycles. All the personal best times have been reset and will no longer set if you exit the floor with no remaining time. Lightning traps will now respect the temporary immunity from Teleport Traps. The final coffin on floor 5 will now award 8 to 12 hollowed marks instead of 4 to 7, and will have 2 rolls on the high tier coffin loot table. And now for next week's update, these are actually the ones we already went over, so those were the ones in the prior. So that is actually it for today's video. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe down below. And until next time, later guys.